Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of 15 Minutes with Patsy. First of all, I want to read a scripture that I will be reading every week. It's Mark 16:15. And Jesus told the disciples to go into all the land and preach the good news to everyone. And that's my goal in doing these videos. Welcome and glad you're here this week. This week we'll start on telling my life story. And to do that, I have to go back to my childhood. Living in my wonderful home with my parents and my sister and other family around us, we were taught the Christian way. Our parents were wonderful Christian people, and they taught us to go in that way. But sometimes we just decide to go down the wrong road. But my childhood was great. I always had nice clothes to wear because my mom was an awesome seamstress. We always had food in the kitchen because my mom and my dad both loved to eat, and so did the rest of the family. We always had everything we needed, and it took me until I was older to realize that we really had a great life. At that time, we actually lived a rich life compared to many that I know today. My childhood was wonderful. As I said, great parents, great family. But I was the one that chose to take the wrong path at a very early age. When I was 14, my mom started letting me date one person. And we dated for a little while. And the dates were dates. But there came a day when I was convinced, at the age of 14, to go somewhere with my boyfriend at the time that I should have stayed away. He convinced me to skip school one day, which was something I had never done. And he convinced me to lay down with him. I will not use the sex word because that word in some ways disgusts me. But he talked me into that. The day that we went somewhere we shouldn't have been, we were coming back and the car that we were in broke down. So I had to call my parents and tell them I had not been at school that day. They didn't do back then like they do these days. If you're not in school or they think you're not in school, Mama gets a text. We know that from our grandson that's in school now, high school. But they didn't do that back then. Parents didn't know unless they somehow got told by the child. And back to the car broke down, had to call my parents and tell them where I was at, why I wasn't home yet, which was later than I should be being home from school. And I couldn't help but cry and tell my mom that if they didn't want me to come back home because of what I had done, I wouldn't go back home. Of course, my mom began to cry as well. And she told me, no, they love me and they want me to come back home, even with my boyfriend. But we had to get somebody to come and get us and get the car running. His dad had to come and get the car running so they could get it home. And my parents came and got me, and I got home. It was a very sad time. That started in about March of that year. Started in March. And by May, early June, it had to be May, I began to believe that I was pregnant. Yes, at the tender age of 14. And my mom found out. So, of course, she took me to see if I was. No, let me back up. It wasn't my mom. It was my boyfriend's mom. Made sure I got to the doctor to find out if I was truly pregnant. And sure enough, I was. And my parents had told me that I had a couple of choices. I could have the baby and they would raise it until I got out of school and I could raise it on my own. Or I could get married. Well, being only 14, I chose to get married. We'll determine later if that was a very good idea or not. However, my parents said, being I had chose to get married, we could get married by the end of June. We would live with them for a while. And so on June 30th, we were married. We lived with my parents for a short while. All of a sudden, my mom and my boyfriend could not get along. So we ended up going to his parents. Well, him and his parents couldn't get along. So we were left with finding somewhere else to live. And we went to live with his aunt and her husband and 2 boys and his grandmother. Backing up a little bit, his grandmother had my boyfriend a bit spoiled. From what I understand. And so we went to live with that family. We lived there a little while. Things went good there. But it wasn't enough room for all of us, especially with the baby coming. So his grandmother got us an apartment. She paid the rent. She paid the power bill. My daddy would bring 5 gallons of kerosene to the house whenever we needed it. And we lived there maybe 6 months. However, during that time there, a terrible thing happened. And I will pick up there next week with the rest of that. Like I said in the introduction of 15 Minutes with Patsy, I will be sharing my life instead of in writing a book in social media. And I hope that everyone will watch. I hope that everyone that does watch gets a little something out of it. And my goal is to reach ladies and young women, whatever the age group may be, to see that there is hope. It doesn't matter what situation you have been in, are in, and my prayer is that situations you will not step into. I want to close with John 3:16. For God so loved the world meaning the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him, which him is Jesus, shall have everlasting life, and will not perish. But he who doesn't believe on the Son, Jesus, will perish. And we'll get into that more as the videos come along. I hope you've enjoyed this week's, and I look forward to bringing you more of my life story next week. And yes, you can probably see at least one of my dogs. They may be joining in videos. I don't know if you can see my other one, Leonard. My husband says no. And I'm sure you will see both of them at some point in time. Oh, there he is. There he is. There's our big boy. These are our children now. Our children are grown and gone. So these are our children now, and I'm sure, will be sharing in our videos, whether on screen with me or barking. But as of now, this is all for episode 2. See you next week.